Okay, so we're going to be doing a whole series of tutorials today. So we have an introduction to Chameleon. This is going to be kind of a high-level overview of everything that Chameleon does, and basically get a, kind of a comprehensive understanding of uh, how you can access Chameleon, what you can do with the resource, and what kinds of experiments, what kinds of things can you actually do once you have access and are able to use the test bed. So we're literally starting from the very beginning here. How do you actually get access to Chameleon? This is probably the simplest part. Almost anybody can get access to or make a user account on Chameleon. Including students, so you don't need to have any special privileges to create a user account. Chances are you won't even need to use a new account. You'll just be able to reuse your institution credentials. So like for me, for instance, if I log in, I am basically taken to UChicago's page. I log in through my identity there. And then I'm authenticated with Chameleon, and I can, use Chameleon under my account. So this is all free to do. As I said, there's no approval process involved in this at all. You just go to the website, you can sign up. And if you don't, for whatever reason, have the ability to use an institutional login, then you can also sign in through Gmail or OrcID. So yeah, there's really any kind of really no limit to getting access to a user account. However, having a user account doesn't really give you much privilege to do anything on Chameleon. So yes, it's super easy to sign up for a user account. However, you're going to want to figure out how to join a project before anything else. So this is going to be kind of the primary step, especially if you're a student. This is going to be where you want to, basically find a faculty member who can create a project for you. I think there's a lot of ways to do this. Like one is, obviously if you're working with a faculty member on a project, you can suggest to them like, hey, we should use Chameleon. They can sign up for an account, they can create a project, and then they can add you to that project. And once you're added to the project, you'll be able to use the resources like any other Chameleon user. The reason we do this is just for liability purposes. So, if we were just kind of giving everybody access to the hardware without vetting it, we'd probably end up with a lot of people trying to mine Bitcoin using our GPU servers. So, we have to be somewhat gatekeep the resource. We have to make sure that bad actors aren't doing bad things with it. And we also have to be aware of, people running things on the system that could create vulnerabilities and things like that. So the reason we ask you to find someone like that to sponsor your use is because we don't want something bad to happen and then you'd be like liable for some cybersecurity incident, right? So so this is mostly, just to protect the students from, doing anything that might harm them. The PI, the person who's in charge of the project, they're responsible for your use. And they're the ones who are going to have to be kind of monitoring what you're doing on the platform. Obviously, if we notice something, we'll probably reach out and say, hey, you left an open port or something like that, right? And we might shut it down or we might remove your instance. But yeah, this is an important step. It's kind of an annoying step if you're a student because you can't just get access to the test bed. But we do try to make an effort to, provide this. So yeah, talk to faculty member. You can even, I'd suggest, like in some cases, we've had students talk to professors during a class and mention this resource, and the professors, create a project for the students. So there's, there's other ways to go about it. But this is an important step. Without a project, you won't be able to do anything on Chameleon other than, basically browse the website. So speaking of joining a project, if you want to kind of follow along today, you're welcome to join our tutorial project. This is this link here I have up on the screen is just a link to join a project on Chameleon. So what happens, you should put this in and then it should just kind of automatically send you into the project process or getting added to the project. So if you want to go ahead and do that now, feel free. And if you run into any issues, just let me know. And then finally, briefly at the beginning here, I'll just mention all the guides and resources we have for getting started. So we do have a literal getting started guide on our documentation. As was discussed yesterday, this may be a little bit out of date with some of the newer features on Chameleon. But this is basically, going to be the kind of, oh, Mark, do you think you can add people to the project?
Yes, I'm watching.
Okay, perfect. This is going to be, basically tell you everything from like, how do you sign up for an account? How do you get added to a project? And then once you're added to a project, how do you reserve hardware, launch instances on that hardware, and then connect to the hardware. So, that's kind of the main workflow for getting onto Chameleon is, reserve, spin up an instance, connect to the instance, do your stuff. Obviously, there's way more features involved with Chameleon, and we can talk about, some of those things like, using storage that we provide and some of the networking features, but that's going to be the most kind of core workflow on Chameleon is reserve, launch, and then, connect and do your stuff. Other learning resources, so we have the tips and tricks blogs, which are a little bit more application focused in terms of I want to do X, Y, and Z on Chameleon. These are not going to be super comprehensive, so like, there may be use cases that aren't there, but it's good to browse through that just to get a sense of, I think Mark recently posted something about the difference between bare metal and KVM on Chameleon. So like, what can you do with bare metal? What can you do with VM? Where's the overlap? Where's there not overlap? So those kinds of things are, looking into a little bit more of like instructing the users in specific use cases rather than just kind of covering the basic technical functionality of the platform. We also have user experiments. So these are like interesting experiments that our users have done on Chameleon. They write up blogs about the research, what they used Chameleon for, and some of the results that they've obtained from it. And then, of course, we have all these documentation, the FAQs, which are mostly about policy. What should and shouldn't I do on Chameleon. And then we have a lot of webinars, similar to the one you're attending today, but on a broad number of features. There's Cheat Edge, which Mike will be covering. There's KVM, which is Mark will be covering today. We have digital artifacts, which Paul will be covering. So there's just tons of things to really dive into. And then we also had some special webinars with guests, external guests from the project over the last about half a year. So those are, webinars with Freda talking about how she ran her graduate class on Chameleon. There's one with another professor who did storage class. So he has a bunch of resources for, working with storage hardware on Chameleon and various things that you can do with it. And then finally, we have our getting help, our help desk. So this is going to be, you can't figure out what to do and the documentation is not helping you. So you need to talk to someone. The help desk is where you can actually get connected to a Chameleon engineer. someone like Mark or Paul or Cody, and they can actually assist you with your issues. One thing to note about the help desks, this isn't like a experiment help desk. So if you're like, I don't know how to do my experiment, this is probably not the place to come. You should probably go talk to your advisor about that or whatever. But this is more just, something about Chameleon's not working for me. I need you to help me figure it out. Um, and then of course, if you have ideas for features or things like that, you can also send those to the help desk, with the understanding that we're probably not going to drop everything and fix this thing for you. But obviously, if there's bugs, things like that, where we really appreciate getting that feedback, and then we can take that and use it to improve the system. Um, the other thing we have for kind of more community-based discussion is the forums. These are relatively new, so we're still kind of figuring out how they work with the community, but these are kind of more for non-urgent, open-ended questions that you might want to get some feedback from the community for. And then, yeah, so that's going to be kind of the, I think I'm missing a slide here. That's going to be the all the resources for getting help. That's just good to have in your back pocket, so that as you're starting to learn more about Chameleon, you know exactly where to go and find resources that can help. And then at this point, I'm gonna kind of switch over to talking more about the actual workflow of Chameleon and how we can, as I said, kind of that workflow of reserve hardware, launch instances, connect, and we'll kind of go through each part of that component. So first thing that we can discuss is the hardware catalog. So this is going to be one of the probably most useful features when you're getting started with Chameleon. The hardware catalog is where you can see all of our hardware nodes across all sites. You can filter based on the configuration of the hardware. There's tons of OpenStack fields that we surface for you to use as filters. So if you're familiar with OpenStack, you can use a lot of those same fields to filter. And then there's also the ability to actually view specific nodes, and you can also, once you've found the hardware that you are interested in, the hardware catalog provides a link to the availability calendars for these nodes. So you can see what nodes we have generally, and then you can go to the availability calendar and see specifically which nodes are available at a specific time. So I'm going to show this off real quick, and okay. All right, so now we're back onto the main site here. Okay, so now I'm gonna, log in federated, and then you don't have to watch me type in my password this time. And now we can see over here, I'm logged into Chameleon. Just a quick overview of what you're seeing here. This is the dashboard. So once you have an account, you'll have this page available to you. And this is where you'll be able to see the projects you're on. So if you are on an active project, it will show up here. If you don't see anything here, then you won't have any access. So this is a good way to verify, like, am I on a project or not? If you joined the tutorial project, you should see this project here pop up here. There's some other things we mentioned, like the outages, and if you do open any tickets, they'll also appear here, so you can see when there's updates and things like that. So yeah, now that we're logged in, I mentioned the hardware discovery. So we're going to go to hardware discovery here under this experiment tab, and this is going to show you, as I said before, all the nodes we have across all of our sites. So this is TAC, UC. I don't think are in-car nodes in here yet? No. But yeah, in-car nodes will be showing up here very soon. And then, as I said, this is where you can filter. So um, there's some top level filters up here, CPUs, threads, RAM, storage. You can also filter by site. If you're really keen on a particular site, you can find all the nodes that are, on TAC, for instance. Um, and then there's a bunch of filters down here that you can also use. So, there's probably some useful stuff like GPU, true. So if I want to see all the nodes that have GPUs, I can go back up here, and this is kind of useful because you can see like some of these node names have GPU in it, but some of these don't. So you wouldn't necessarily know that just from looking at the name. So these are useful. I'd highly recommend looking through some of these filters if you're looking for really specific things. The other thing is, so let's say you are interested in these GPUs. I can click on the node up here, and then I can click view down here. And this is going to pull up a kind of more detailed view of the nodes that are available, matching my criteria. So I can see there's 2 here that we have on Chameleon, and I can see information about the GPU, so on and so forth. So this is great for kind of doing that initial browsing. And then what's nice, and this is a relatively new thing we just added, is so before you were doing this, you would find these nodes and you'd say, okay, great, I want one of these things. Then you'd basically have to go all the way out to a new site, like check another calendar that's in a different place, and then you'd have to come back and like remember what you saw here, and then go and check and it gets very complicated. There's a lot of switching back and forth. So what we did is we added this ability to just view the host calendar for a resource directly from the resource page. So if I click this view host calendar, what this is going to do is it's going to take me to a slightly different site. If you look up at the domain, you see where chi.tac.chameleon cloud. So this is one of our Horizon sites. This is, I'm on the TAC site right now. And then this is showing the host calendar. So the host calendar is going to be what tells you whether or not a node is free or not, if it has a reservation on it, so on and so forth. And here I can kind of pull out where I'd like to see. I can look, if I want to look even further out, I can edit the fields up here. Wow, that's a huge lead time. All right. So yeah, there's clearly GPU H100s are very popular right now on Chameleon. Tons of reservations, but this is useful so I can see where there's breaks in the reservation, and then I can kind of look and say, okay, this one's ending on the 30th at around 3:30, so at that time this node will be free, and I can reserve it up to about May 1st, so maybe a day, so on and so forth. This is great for planning. A lot of stuff, especially when you're using high demand resources on Chameleon, you're going to need to plan your work with it, and the availability calendar is like super key for that. You have to be able to see where these nodes are going to be available, and then kind of make plans in advance for when to use it. The nice thing is once you put a reservation on the calendar, so let's say I was like, oh, you know what, here's an opening, nice big opening here. It looks like maybe a week of time I could get with the H100. So I can make a note of this and then go back and make a reservation, and I'll have this node for myself. So this is super useful. The other thing that, and you can check any node type with this calendar. So like if I am interested in, just a kind of generic CPU node, Cascade Lake, I can check the calendar here and it's way more availability. If I want, I can grab a node right now. And you know what? Actually, let's go ahead and do that. So kind of what we've seen so far is, I'm going through the hardware browser. I'm seeing what hardware is available. Now I'm checking the host calendar to see when that hardware is available, when I can use it. And now I've found something that I'm interested in reserving. So now the question is, how do I actually put a reservation on there? So when you're on the host calendar, this is actually super easy. This is a really nice new feature that we just released. So I can just click on the node here that I'm interested in. So I see there's this node here, no reservations. I can reserve it right away. If I click on this, then it just immediately pops up create lease box. So this is great because before, again, there was a lot of switching back and forth. You had to go check the calendar, then you had to go back and go to the lease page and then click new lease and so on and so forth, right? So this is nice because here I can just see the node, it's free, I can click on it and boom, I'm already making my lease for it. So I'm just gonna put the Chameleon user meeting lease. So really the only thing required on this first page is the lease name, just basically whatever you want to give it. And then the other important things here is this is where you're going to specify the duration of your lease. So start date, start time, the default is today, right away. But if I wanted to start later, I could choose, 23rd next week or whatever, and I can specify a start time. So as I was saying, you can see on the calendar specifically when someone's lease is going to end. That's useful because then you can come back, specify that time, and then you'll have the hardware immediately after their lease ends. And then to specify the length of time, you'll just kind of give a number of days. So you could do 1 day or up to 7 days for bare metal nodes. I'm just going to make a day lease. Default is just a single day. And then on this next tab, so this is where a little bit of that magic comes in. Here I'm on the host tab. Normally I would have to kind of click this box and say, yes, I want to reserve a host. And then I'd have to come down here and put in a filter to tell me what node I would like to reserve. Since I clicked on the node that, we saw that node that was already open and I just clicked on it. Now here we can see this is already pre-filled out for us. I don't really need to do anything here other than just click next. However, if I did want to, filter by another criteria, you can change this. So for instance, if I wanted to filter by node type, I can put in node type equal, and then, I can type like a GPU or something like that. So this is a little bit tough. I think we got some good feedback about this yesterday in terms of like, how do you know what fields you can filter by and things like that. So we're going to work on getting a better, or at least some kind of link to tell you, like, learn more about the fields. But yeah, this is the idea is, so you take those same fields that you were seeing in the hardware browser, and then you can actually filter for them directly here in the box. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you do multiple fields? If you want to do like node type and memory, is that possible?
I don't know. Is that possible, Mark?
It is possible to do and. I actually.
Well, it says right there, then, right? Multiple filters separated by commas.
Oh,
Yes.
Thank you. Reading would be
There you
nice.
go. That's your answer. Yeah. Okay. So that's how you do it. I didn't know. All right, but let me see if I can just get back to this. Okay, so here I'm filtering by a specific node name. That's just automatic because I clicked on that specific one.
I missed the drop down menu there. I guess it's nice to type it out in the video.
Yeah, I think the issue was that, like, with the drop down, there was like some fields that had like so many options that it was just like it went forever and ever and ever. I don't know. It's like I think there's maybe a
Maybe there's
a hybrid between like a drop down and a search that we could do, because I agree it's a little hard to remember exactly what to type and stuff. Um, so anyways, okay, so last step here for the lease. If I'm going to do anything with a network, like I want to set up my own private network or something, you're going to want to like click this reserve network and then fill out some of the information here. Most of the time, you're just going to want to reserve a floating IP address. This is, basically just something that gets assigned to the node so that you have a way to connect to it directly. And when I do this step while I'm creating my lease, it just ensures that I have that resource available when I go to start my lease. If you forget to do this step, it's not a big deal, because you can go and request a IP address ad hoc. So, you don't have to like recreate your lease if you forget to do this, but it's usually better practice to do it at this step. So I've got my host, I got networks, I reserved a floating IP. Just put 1 for that, and then I'll say create. And then you can see this goes ahead and submits it to the system.
If the resources you requested weren't available at this time, is it at this step that it would tell you that, or would it happen earlier?
Yeah, so I would get an error on the lease creation, and it would basically say, I don't know, does the error message actually tell you?
Yeah, it'll say not enough hosts.
Okay.
Meaning, for the filter you gave it, there were no available hosts.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so if this failed, there would be some kind of indication. I mean, I don't think we often get people like leases failing for just like no reason. It's usually like the resource isn't available, or you requested something that we don't have at that time.
Yeah, usually it means the request can't be fulfilled.
Right. So basically, like if it succeeds, then great, you got your lease. If it fails, then probably something like one of the resources is reserved or something like that. However, like if you do find that and you're like, no, I'm positive this is not reserved, then that would be like a good help desk thing to go and reach out to us. So yeah, now that I've created the lease, now we're going to be taken to the lease page here. So again, this is all happening on OpenStack. Let me just make sure you guys see how I get there. So yeah, I'm going, experiment. So if I wanted to get to the same place from the website, I would just go experiment, and then I'd go down to sites, and clicking on any of these is going to take you to the OpenStack site for that particular location. So just a quick caveat there. So yeah, I'm on the lease page. So now I can see that I have my lease. It's in that pending state, and then once I refresh, it changes or tells me it's now an active lease. So this means that the lease is like actually active right now. I have this node. No one else can use this except for me. So now I get to actually work with this lease. Let me just pop back over to my slides to make sure I'm not missing anything here. So we went through the advanced reservations. We talked a little bit about, okay, so yeah. So now, we've gotten the lease, we've reserved the hardware. We've confirmed that the lease is active. There are some things you can do with leases, like if you want to update your lease after you've made it, you can do that. We have a policy where if you want to extend your lease after for a particular amount of time, you can do so once your lease is within 2 days of expire, or is it 2 or 1 day? Mark?
Just 1 day.
1 day? 1 day of expiration.
It is 2.
Oh, no, it's 2 days. Bad Cody. No.
It depends on the length of your lease as well.
Yeah, that's right. We kind of changed it. But yeah, basically it's like once you get close to the end of your lease, you can request an update or extension for it. And these are not like extend my lease for a month, but you know, it's like I need a couple extra days to finish it. Can you extend it? Or we actually don't need to approve these as long as the resource isn't being used. You can extend your lease. So if there is a reservation there after, you won't be able to extend it. But if there isn't, you will be able to. Yeah, Connor.
If you're on the, say like you're just using something simple like Skylake and there's like a bunch of different nodes available, but then like your lease you want to extend it, but since you had this certain node name, if you try to extend it, someone else has already got that spot after you. Would it be possible to reallocate what you have to a different node name, or would you have to recreate a new instance on like
You would have
separate?
to recreate the instance.
Okay, that could be interesting. I don't know how hard that would be, but I don't know if that would be possible.
So we've thought about, you know, if that person after you doesn't strictly require the same node, maybe we could shift them around. If,
Okay.
you know, if their lease parameters are okay with that. We don't do that right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if there are multiple people in a project, they're able to view all the leases at once, right? So what happens when somebody deletes it? Because to me it has happened more than one time that probably somebody just went and deleted it. Because we have a lot of people working in the same project. So maybe it was by mistake. I mean, I'm not trying to
It
pin
has
anybody.
happened, it has happened maliciously.
Yeah.
So have you thought anything about that?
Yes.
I have some ideas that might be easy that we can do here, but we'll try to look into that. So you were like on a research project and this happens?
Yes.
Because I know I asked the education panelists, and I know Freda said like it happens so often she can't report it every time.
Yeah, so is there a way you can see who deleted it or?
Yes, we can see in the logs. But
Yeah.
You can find
Yes,
it.
yes.
Yeah, I would think that's something like you want to talk to the PI about too, and
Well, I
Let them-
overlooked it because it just happened like 2 times. I mean, I went ahead and did the setup again
Yeah.
because I thought let's not take that hassle. But yeah, I mean, it would be nice if I could have control over like, you know, whether to delete or not delete.
okay.
So that's just some
That's
sort
a
of
good-
off thing.
Yeah, so you're kind of suggesting like maybe a little bit more differentiation in roles.
Yeah, like right now, everything in OpenStack assumes anyone in this project has access to the same stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems
Huh.
our projects are growing, you know, if it's not just 3 people, it's more likely issues come up. So I'll try to look into what could we do about that.
Is that hard to implement? Just have, if you create the node, then you're the only one that's allowed to delete.
It's just that OpenStack isn't built for that sort of.
Yeah.
So we have to do something on top of that to enforce it.
I'm kind of cautious of, you know, completely changing how OpenStack works to do that. But maybe, you know, we can update the UI to at least add bumpers, so it's harder to go off the rails.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good thought. Okay, so yeah, we got the lease. Now, quick, I don't know if I'm gonna actually, I might kind of come back to this at the end, and maybe while we're waiting for this to actually launch, go through some of the other slides, but now I'm gonna launch an instance on the hardware that I just reserved. So we just did, you know, the Skylake or the Cascade Lake. So I can just, you know, put in an instance name for myself to recognize this. So I can call this the Chameleon user meeting instance. You can put in a description if you want, and then here's where I have to select the reservation. So if I hadn't made this lease before, there wouldn't be anything here for me to select and I wouldn't be able to launch anything. This is saying, hey, I have a reservation for this resource, it's active, use this for the instance. And then I can tell it how many instances I want to spin up. So I'm just going to do one. And then from here, this is where I can configure the source. So actually, speaking of, I'll show that while I get this running, but I'm gonna pick, so this is where I pick like an image, right, to boot my instance. You can also do fancier things like use a heat template to bring up things or, you know, more sophisticated orchestration workflows. I'm just gonna do a simple, you know, like Ubuntu 24. I'm gonna use the Chameleon supported image because I know that that one is, you know, kept up to date and maintained. And then I just click this button, this arrow button over here to allocate it to my instance here. So I have this image now I'm going to use. And then I'm going to click next. So this is kind of something somewhat new because we just started adding flavors for KVM. So we now have a bare metal flavor. This is just saying you're on a bare metal node, so you don't really need to do anything here. Then very important part here, so you should allocate a network. If you want to have access to your node through like SSH, you're going to want to use the shared net subnet. If you want to do something like using Fabric, so we do have Fabric network integrated with Chameleon, so you can use the Fabric network to do like cross-site experiments. So if I want to like reserve a node in TAC and then have a node at UC and have them talking to each other over the Fabric network, I could use FabNet for something like that. But we're just going to use the simple shared net. And then last thing is, these are ports. And then I'm going to put my key pair in here. So I'll just use one of the keys that I have from before. And then I can, I'm pretty much ready to launch. There are some more additional fields here, so if I click Show Advanced, I can see all the fields that I can.
I can interject real quick. Putting a key pair in is super important. You cannot log in without a key pair.
Yeah, good emphasis. Yeah, so if you don't add this, I think you'll have to relaunch the instance.
You have
right?
to relaunch
Yeah.
the instance. There's no.
So,
Yeah, you could use the console,
to add your.
but it's probably not very useful, yeah.
I've done that once before.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, like, how useful is that? Like, I feel like a lot of people don't use the console on Node 6. Like, I don't.
It's not as, it's a little buggy with bare metal. Like yeah.
It is a good way to like get your instance back if you mess up the network. And you know, sometimes logging goes there or something, you know, that you might need to see.
Yeah, it's like web cars, it's like super slow. Yeah. Like some like sort of like exporting or something. Or just like.
It's actually forwarding over a serial console from the node's BMC, the broadband management chip. So it's a little bit roundabout, but it's more or less what you would see on the BMC of the machine.
Yep. So don't forget to put your SSH key. You don't want to have to use the console. All right, so the virtual machines, so I just kind of went through how you configure bare metal. Virtual machines, which Mark is going to be doing a tutorial right after this about that. That's going to be pretty much the same process. If you're going through the GUI, it's going to be like almost look identical to what I just did, except there's going to be a few small variations where like instead of selecting instead of having that like kind of default flavor selected for you, you actually have to pick a flavor. These are the flavor names that we offer. We just added the H100 VMs, so that's pretty exciting because before that, we didn't have any GPUs on KVM. So now with these H100 flavors, you can actually reserve a VM with a GPU attachment that uses PCIe pass-through. So it's actually pretty good for.
And there's an even newer one that uses a virtual GPU with a 1/7 slice of the physical GPU.
Oh, great.
So if you don't need a huge amount of RAM, you can get one of these fractional GPUs
Yeah.
and maybe have more than one of them, that sort of thing.
So these are much more cost-effective than using bare metal. These are going to be like a fraction of the cost of using a bare metal node. So, you know, for instance, like the M1 large, I think, rather than, so if I reserve like an H100 node on bare metal on Chameleon, that's equivalent to what we call service units, 16 service units. And you get about an allocation of 20,000 service units for 6 months. So 16 for 1 hour of using, you know, a GPU. Here, you know, you're talking like for an M1 large, that's like maybe 0.3 SUs, right, or 0.5. So like these are way cheaper relative to bare metal, especially for GPUs. These GPU instances are still going to be pretty costly because they're GPUs and people still want to use them. But yeah, this can be efficient, especially for, you know, doing projects or playing around with Chameleon, not necessarily wanting to do something on a full bare metal node. KVM is really good for that. And as I think the discussion showed yesterday, there's actually a lot more use cases where you can use KVM rather than bare metal. Can make things a lot faster and easier. So, and then we also have containers that you can launch on Chia Edge. So this is our Edge platform. These are container based, so this is all through, you know, Docker, and I think Kubernetes K3. So we have some support for peripherals on here. Most of these devices are just sitting in a lab. They're not necessarily out in the wild anywhere. But we do have some peripherals attached to some of them. So like there's camera, there's like, there's some sensors that we have. I think one of the GPUs also has like a accelerator attached to it, the Jetson Nano. So there's some interesting peripherals and additional add-ons to the devices. And then you can also add your own devices. So if you have like Raspberry Pi or something, you can actually just stick it onto the Chia Edge, and I think you have to configure it for, can you configure it as like a private device for yourself or?
Yes, just for your project.
Okay, so yeah, you can configure it either just for your project or you can actually just share it with everyone. So if you're like, yeah, I have a Pi, someone can use it, you can stick it on on Chia Edge and other people can use it. And just to kind of go through briefly a little bit about our community, what some of the folks have been doing with Chameleon. So, you know, we're really big on community, supporting our researchers, working with them to understand their needs better so we can do cooler things with our platform and help, you know, make these communities more productive. So one thing, a big part of that is Trovy. I was hoping to get to some examples of this before the end of the time, but Trovy is where we have all of our digital artifacts. So this includes images, it includes heat templates, orchestration templates, GitHub repositories that users have uploaded showing experiments. So a lot of these experiments that people were talking about yesterday are actually available on Trovy. Or you can find like a Trovy article that's linked to the GitHub repository. So yeah, this is both artifacts that we maintain, we upload. There's Chameleon supported images, Chameleon supported artifacts, as well as user uploaded stuff. So I think we have, yeah, this is showing just a quick graph. So we have This is excluding artifacts that we have added ourselves. But there's 401 artifacts total uploaded to Trovi. You can see how this has really grown over the last couple of years, particularly with reproducible and education artifacts. And then you can also see this huge jump up in environment artifacts, which are like images, templates. That basically is when we took all of the, what we used to have appliance catalog, we're kind of shelving that and just moving everything into Trovi. So that's why you see this huge spike of environment artifacts there. And then we have like our actual metrics, so you can measure engagement, like how many people are accessing your artifact, how many people are launching it, how many are actually like launching it and then running the first cell of your notebook. So there's various ways to measure engagement. Just a couple of examples of research that we've supported. So this is actually I think same paper that or similar to the paper that Valerie Taylor presented yesterday, but this is AI-driven energy optimization. So looking at how to develop systems that can adjust power settings based on memory usage. Another example, this is more based in edge, so this is federated learning. We had a student deploy edge devices all around the UChicago campus with air quality monitoring, and then he was using federated models to kind of create local models and then have those fed into a global model. So doing some really cool stuff with that. And then this is a teaching example, so this is the course that Freda presented yesterday on her ML Ops for graduate students. So, really cool stuff that she was doing on the platform with that. And then we also support a lot of reproducibility initiatives. So we're constantly looking for people, ways that we can support artifact evaluations at conferences, reproducibility hackathons where maybe students get together and package a couple of experiments and upload them on Trovi. We're doing, birds of a feather reproducibility sessions. We're constantly reaching out to authors who are using cyber infrastructure for these. So always trying to look for ways to work with this community. Keep an eye out. We'll probably have a reproducibility event at some point that you'll be able to come to. So this is a really rich and kind of engaging space. So that's kind of brings me at time. Maybe I can just end here by quickly showing okay, so we've launched our instance now, it's running. The only thing I have to do if I'm gonna connect to this is I'm gonna associate my public IP. So I'm gonna click the port on my instance that I launched, click associate. And then I'm gonna go to my terminal here. And I'm going to do a quick SSH, see if I can get to this node. There's all my keys. You can see that I have great key management. And then I'm gonna copy the floating IP and say CC at this IP. Work? Oh. Well, I probably don't have the right key.
CC is for Chameleon Cloud, if you need to remember it.
Yeah, Chameleon Cloud, CC. Well, that didn't work. Unfortunately, I'm not sure which key I have to use, so. But the idea would be I'd SSH, and then I'd be on the node, and I'd be able to basically do everything I want with it. So it's a little sad that I couldn't end that with that, but you kind of get the idea, right? You're going to SSH. Once you SSH into it, it's just like SSHing into any kind of remote platform. You're going to be able to do stuff from the command line and so on and so forth. And yeah, so I think I'm gonna end it there. Again, I would strongly encourage folks to check out Trovy. There's gonna be a little bit more stuff about this and some of the other tutorials, but we have these like Chameleon supported artifacts. So these are, things like images. There's also like kind of like tutorial type artifacts that you can use, as well as, things like like using a GPU on KVM attack, bare metal experiment pattern. So these will use the Python Chi interface, which is our Python library that you can use to interact with. So you can actually make reservations, launch instances, do all of that through the Trovy interface, and you can do it all programmatically. So you can set up a script that does this without you need to like type every single line out or go to the GUI. Basically everything we just did through the GUI we could do in a Trovy artifact using Python Chi. So, or if you don't want to use Python Chi, you can also use the OpenStack CLI. So there's there's really a lot of other ways to interact with it in a more kind of programmatic fashion. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and stop there. Please let me know if you have any questions. And I think we'll hand it over to Mark to do the KVM tutorial, and then we can we'll have a quick break at the end of his session. So that'll be at like 10. Okay, thank you guys so much. Let me know if you have any other questions. I'll be around for the rest of the event, so I'm more than happy to chat.